Forward in three, two. Welcome to another episode of Million Dollar Stories, where we get to interview authors from all over the world. I love talking to authors because they have the courage to take their thoughts, their stories, their lessons, put it down in a book, and share it with the many, ultimately changing their legacy and destiny in the process. And if you're an entrepreneur out there, I highly recommend you write a book. You will obtain clarity, self-awareness, and also many opportunities to grow your business. And if you need help, check out dreamstarterspublishing.com. And let's say you already have a book that's done. You want to use the book to generate leads for your business. Check out bookmarketingcrm.com. As you know, on this podcast, it's all about entrepreneurship, attracting, capturing, and converting individuals into maybe leads, into clients, into a tribe. And that's why this next guest is absolutely perfect. He wrote a book called Attract, Capture, and Convert: 89 Simple Ways Entrepreneurs Make Money Online Using Web Marketing and Social Media Strategy. How to make money using social media. Yeah, that's just the next phrase of it. And it was written 10 years ago. Many of the principles are, and I guess we talked about it beforehand, but they're evergreen. So it's going to be fun to talk with the author, Mason. I should have been able to get the name down before we started, but it's Dukacek. Is that right?
Pretty close. It's Dukacek.
Dukacek. All right. Mason Dukacek. I apologize for mispronouncing the name, but I appreciate you being here, sir.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, let's start off with the genesis of this book. What made you want to write this? I know you have many books, but if you can outline the reason why you sat down, put this book together, and maybe your background, where you come from, and what got you to this point here.
Well, I'll start with why I wrote the book. I wrote the book because, my peer group is business owners. That's who I hang out with. I go cycling with business owners. I run with business owners. I'm not good at golf, so I don't golf with them, but that's my peer group. And we talk about all of these challenges and how do you address them. And I just got hit with so many of the same questions over and over and over that I was like, you know what? If my peer group is asking me this stuff and I have the answers, instead of answering the same thing over and over and over again, so there's got to be a whole bunch more people that want to know this stuff. So I did it. And I think, to answer the question, getting here, that's an interesting statement. I worked for a national sales trainer and motivational speaker right out of college. And one of the first things that he taught me was, he said, Mason, your worst pen is better than your best memory. Take notes. And by the way, if you see me looking down, that's because I do take notes and
Your
practice.
worst pen is better than your best memory.
So write everything down, take notes.
Love that quote. Damn, is that good?
My worst pen's better than your best memory. And I found myself calling on business owners, VPs of sales, head of HR, head of operations, working for him. And the nice part about that job was it was a very consultative sales approach. I would go in and I would talk to them about, what their business was, what made them different, what made them special, what their unique challenges were, what some of their unresolved issues were. And I took notes. So I'm learning from people every day in the real world, not in the classroom, in the real world where there's risk on the line and mistakes cost money, solving these problems. And after a while, I could talk to one business owner who has solved the problem that business owner number 2 still struggles with. The next thing you know, I meet with business owner number 2, and that guy's figured out solutions to the problems that business number 3 is dealing with. And business owner number 3 has figured out the answers to the problems that business number 4 is dealing with. And after a while, by the time I talk to business owners, VPs of sales, head of HR, marketing, et cetera, I'm feeling pretty smart, but no, I took notes and I had a record of how all of these people dealt with all these challenges. And after a while, there's not a lot of surprises left. I can pretty much walk into a business and someone says, hey, we're struggling with this. Oh, well, have you tried A, B, and C? Well, no. And they look at me like I'm some kind of genius. Well, no, I just surrounded myself with really smart people, paid attention, took notes, and didn't lose the value of their time. I made that knowledge part of me. And I feel like I can pretty much walk in. And it wasn't just, oh, here's the answer, but I understood the reasons behind why they did what they did. What they tried, what worked, what didn't work, and why. So it really gave me the ability to walk into any business. And when they start talking about challenges they have, I just have to ask a few questions, listen intently, listen to what they've tried, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And then usually I can either help them or point them in the direction of someone else who can.
Yeah. Well, what made you fall in love with the world of entrepreneurship? I think I grew up in a world where I didn't really understand it. I didn't understand business ownership or anything. And my instinct was to just follow my dad into the Navy. And I was about to until I met a guy who was an entrepreneur and he had the lifestyle that I looked at as maybe the dream life, right? That he dated the pretty girls, he drove the fancy cars, he had the freedom to do whatever, whenever. And I kind of followed him into this pathway of starting businesses and real estate investment. And then he gave me a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that completely set me free. So, what was there a moment in your life that you were like, man, entrepreneurship is cool because of X, Y, and Z, or I met this person and he had this viewpoint, and they just lived a different lifestyle than most. So, what was it?
So good question. And my answer is not quite as glamorous. And my parents are probably going to be very thankful to hear me say this because I don't get to thank them enough. But I had parents that provided everything that I ever needed. I got everything I needed, but I did not get everything I wanted. My parents told me and my younger brother no. And when we were growing up, and if there was something I wanted but didn't need, they were like, well, then you pay for it. And that forced me to figure out ways to get what I wanted. So, I turned 16 at the end of the summer before my junior year in high school. And I had my car paid for before I turned 16 because I went out and hustled. I realized that there were a bunch of actually, I'd even say it started before that. I had limit when they were building homes in the subdivisions. I had a little lemonade stand for the construction workers, so I'd hustle to sell lemonade to those guys. When the snow hit, I was out shoveling sidewalks and shoveling driveways to earn money. When I got a little older, I started mowing grass. I had my whole high school cross country team lined up mowing grass with me because I made deals with real estate agencies to say, hey, you guys got people who own homes that don't live here anymore that you can't sell because there's weeds in the yard. Well, me and my team will take care of that and we'll bill them directly. And next thing you know, I had real estate agencies giving me all kinds of referrals, so I didn't have to spend any money on marketing. And then we just had to take good care of the folks. So I made enough money the summer before I turned 16 by mowing and having other people mow with me. So I've always done that. And the gig where I worked for the national sales trainer, that wasn't an accidental thing. I was sitting in I was paid my way through college with Army ROTC, and I was sitting in Officer Basic, which was a 4-month training, and I knew I was going to get out. And I said, I need to develop some additional skills and knowledge and some connections. So when I get out, what can I do? So I started reading books like Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I started realizing some Zig Ziglar books, and I started realizing that I could shorten my learning curve. I could live vicariously through these experts and not have to learn their lessons the hard way. So I started consuming book after book after book. And I said, I need to go develop the experience to apply this. So I took a job as soon as I got out of, I had my college degree, finished Officer Basic, and I took a job selling suits at a place called Kuppenheimer. And I sold health club memberships at Bally's Health Club because I wanted experience selling. I figured if I ever owned my own business, which I knew I would, I needed to have what I felt was the most valuable skill of any of them is sales and marketing, because who goes out of business because they sell too much? That's a great problem to have. So I said,
Yeah.
I'm going to learn how to do this. And I figured that selling suits, I could get experience selling tangible goods. Selling health club memberships, I could get experience selling intangibles. So that would develop my skill set. I figured I would also build a wardrobe cheap selling the suits. And I would get introduced to business people who I wanted. That was like fishing in a barrel. And I actually got the job from the national sales trainer. This guy walks in. I'd never heard of him before. He has back then, this was early 90s. He had, $80,000 or $90,000 Mercedes sitting out on the lot. He walks in and says, hey, I'm a sales trainer. I'm on the road nonstop. I want 5 of your best suits, ties, outfits, everything. I only want the best. So I'm like, I need to know this guy. So I went up, introduced myself. He said who he was, what he did. And I told him, hey, I'm new in sales. I'm trying to learn how to do this. These are the books I've read. Which ones would you recommend that I have it? And he gave me a list of them. And I got his home address off an alterations ticket on his suit. And I sent him a letter saying, thank you for giving me the advice on these books. I've already read 2 of them, and wouldn't you, I said, oh, and he actually tested me. I forgot. He actually tested me while we were having the conversation. He said, so you're new in sales and you're reading these books. So surely you know what a tie down is, don't you? Obviously, it was an old school sales technique where you get people to agree and say yes. I go, of course, wouldn't you agree any young person serious about a career in sales would take the time to learn that technique? And of course, he smiled because number one, he knew that
You
I
knew
was
the
serious.
tie down. You used the tie down for him,
I
right?
did. Two, I had the guts to do it to him. So I got his alterations. I got his address off an alterations ticket, sent him my resume and a cover letter. He hired me, and I made almost $7,000 my first month in the territory, and I was 22 years old. And my friends were taking jobs at banks for $18,000 a year, and this would have been like 1991, I'm guessing. And I made them right around $7,000 my first month in the territory, and it was I mean, I just modeled everything this guy did and said, and I surrounded myself I got into Tony Robbins and Brian Tracy. And right now, some of my favorites, which, for people who are listening, if someone were to ask me, who should I be listening to now? I'm going to give you three names. I think these three people are prophetic. Their words and actions have withstood the test of time. Seth Godin is one of my favorites. His book, Purple Cow, is a must read.
Yep.
Seth Godin, I love. Mike Koenigs, he's out in San Diego, and this guy's continually 2 to 3 years ahead of everyone else.
How do you spell his last name?
Koenigs.
Oh, I've seen it. Yeah. Okay.
He's 2 to 3 years ahead of everybody and has been forever. He doesn't miss. And I'll tell you who I'm a real big fan of right now is Russell Brunson. His book, if your audience is comprised of solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, this guy's got it figured out, and he practices what he preaches. He's the creator of this thing called ClickFunnels, but his book Expert Secrets is amazing. It's about, and I think you can get it for free at expertsecrets.com, just pay for shipping. But expertsecrets.com secrets, traffic secrets. He's got these books that basically tell you, here's how you position yourself as an expert. Here's how you build an audience and build a tribe. Here's how you communicate with them. Here's how you access them. Here's how you drive traffic. And I think it's important to read all of those, and I have multiple times, even in a couple of years between them, because my perspective on things changes. But this guy is right on the money with everything, and I have watched him practice what he preaches. These guys are for real. They're amazing, and anytime you can spend, whether it's podcast or books or any of their events, is time well spent.
Yeah, I like all three. I've definitely heard of Mike. I don't know much of his stuff, but I've heard of him. And obviously Seth with Tribes, and then Russell Brunson. I mean, Expert Secrets, absolutely. Yeah, changed me for sure. So, looking at your book here, and guys, attract, capture, and convert. Really, that's the name of the game when it comes to lead generation, right? So that's why I think a book is an amazing way to attract attention, right? Capture information and convert into clients. And you have a part of your book that you explain when it comes to, I like the credibility ladder. If we want to start there, what is the credibility ladder? When I saw that, I'm like, oh, it does kind of make me think of a book called Authority, or no, Influence by Robert Cialdini, and it's all about building authority. So the credibility ladder, what's that about?
Well, anytime I'm presenting a value proposition to a potential customer, there is a degree of perceived risk on the part of the customer. Anything I can do to reduce that risk is a good thing. And the whole idea of the credibility ladder. One of my friends, Brett Curry, he's in Springfield, Missouri, kind of gave the perfect example of a guy like Dave Ramsey. People know who he is. They've heard him on the radio. They've read his books. They know who he is. They pay money to go to his events. But if you really break it down, the difference in advice between him and your average financial planner down the street, it's pretty similar advice in a lot of cases.
It is. Stay out of debt, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Spend less than you earn. I'm a huge fan of Kiyosaki and his Rich Dad Poor Dad. You like assets. Not doodads. But the advice.
Kiyosaki and Ramsey don't agree on debt, though, for sure, when it comes to certain things, right? So they would fight with each other, but for the most part, right, live below your means, right?
Yes, common sense. But your local financial planner is going to business networking meetings. He's going to chamber coffees. He's buying people lunches. He's doing anything he can to get their attention and to get them to sit down so that he can explain the same stuff other people are actually paying money to go from Ramsey. And what's the difference? Well, you don't know who this guy down the street is. You know, he might have cold called your door or something like that, left his card and left a brochure or something like that. But, you know, there's a big difference between perceived risk of some guy you've never heard of that left a card on your doorstep, or some guy you met at the Chamber of Commerce, and this guy who's on national TV, who's written best-selling books, who has tens of thousands of followers. And everything that you can do to eliminate the perceived, to position yourself as an expert and build upon it, like simple things like writing a book. Great credibility, establishes credibility. If you've got a book out, then people know you've got some life experience and some knowledge and some wisdom that is worth something. So maybe they might want to listen to you. Oh, and then they read their ideas. Wow, this person's already helped me. I want to know more about them. Oh, they hear you on the radio. They read your stuff on social media. They see your stuff on YouTube. All of a sudden, your credibility is, every little thing you do is building credibility, and that's reducing the risk, and it increases the demand for what you have to offer if you build your credibility. And when people at the top of the ladder, there's minimal risk, perceived risk doing business with them. The demand for their services and their time is much higher than everyone else's. And people are willing to pay more to do business with someone who's at the top of the credibility ladder. And it is a predictable, steady process that anyone can start.
And where would you start? So if somebody's out there listening right now, I have a recommendation. Obviously, I'm the book man, right? I say to begin, write a book that'll give you some footing in the marketplace, but then become a bestseller. That's going to add another accolade to your name. That's going to give you an extra stripe on your shoulder. So book, bestseller, podcast. Why is a podcast important? Simply because you can offer a platform for big names like yourself to come on, and then you can serve other people. So you can serve an audience. Now that is going to allow you to perfect your messaging, which allows you to get invited on other people's podcasts. So it automatically starts to snowball if you just take action. Action creates traction, right? So where would you begin if someone out there is just starting in the marketplace? What would you say is step one?
Step one is I would read Russell Brunson's book, Expert Secrets, and I would take notes and highlight it. And I'd write down everything that you highlighted into a notepad, and I would memorize that stuff. I would learn that stuff. Then when it comes to applying it, I'm going to take a step back because number one, that's going to tell you how to position yourself.
Got it.
Because you can write a book, but I don't want to get my cart in front of my horse. I want to make sure, hey, I know who my audience is. I know what message that I want to deliver. I want to know how my delivery of this message is going to move me up on the credibility ladder, and it's going to attract my ideal prospects. It's going to repel the wrong ones, which is also an important thing. And it's going to do it while I sleep.
Yep.
So I'm going to share another concept with you that you say, where would I start? I would start with, and a book is huge. I'm going to share a concept that I was visiting with a young pastor in Missouri one day, and we were talking about the social media and ongoing market. And this was, before it became everything that it is now. And when I explained to him some of my concepts, Mason goes, this is just like jug fishing. And I'm like, I don't know what jug fishing is. He's like, oh, it's all right. I'll explain it to you. He goes, he grew up in Alabama, and when he was a little kid, his dad took him fishing, and he had ADHD, and he couldn't sit still. Fishing sucked. He hated fishing with his dad because he had to sit there and be still, waiting for one bobber to go and come back up. Then his dad realized that this was not a good idea, so he taught him how to jug fish. And I go, Matt, what is jug fishing? And he said, Mason, he goes, that's when you take a bunch of like milk jugs and you tie fishing line and hooks and string to them, and you put bait on them, and you go where you know there's a bunch of fish and no one else is fishing, and then you let them float there, and then you go along the shore and you grab a net, and you just wait for those little jugs to go underwater, and you run and you scoop them up. So this kid's running all up and down the river, scooping up fish all day. Way different experience. So here's the analogy. The river, think of the river as the internet. Think of fish as your ideal prospects. Think of keyword research as a guide that can tell you where the fish are and no one else is fishing. So you're putting your bait in the right spots. Think of the jugs and the lines, that's your bait, i.e. your content and your ability to provide value to the marketplace by offering solutions to problems that your marketplace has. And the net is basically your lead capture and follow-up process. And when you think of it in terms of that, I
Call to
think,
action, basically, right?
yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. So when I look at a book and what I think where a lot of people mistake, because I've written 10 books, and I think where most people miss the mark on this is they have a book in them and they don't realize it. Like if you took, oh, I don't want to get off on that. Maybe if you think it's necessary, we'll get into that. But the ideas that I can take in a book, like let's just take attract, capture, convert. Every single one of those mistakes or every single one of those strategies could be a blog post, could be a video, could be an article. It can be repurposed one piece of content can be repurposed in multiple ways. So when I talk about jug fishing, I'm not really talking about just jug fishing in a river. I want to put my content in a lake. I want to put my content in an ocean. I want to put my content in a pond. I want to put it everywhere where my ideal prospects are. And you know what? You or I, we might like reading books. Someone else might like listening to podcasts. Someone else might like watching YouTube videos. And you know what? I don't care, because I'm going to deliver my content in all of those forms and all of those places so that I am delivering the content to those people the way they want to consume it. The hard
Love
part,
it.
as you and I both know, is coming up with the content and the knowledge. And once you've got that, then put it in all of these different forms and put it in all of these different places so that it can be consumed by the people the way they want to do it. And if someone's got a bunch of blogs, I'll tell you what, if you got someone out there in this audience they've been blogging for 2 or 3 years, then they've got a book.
That's right.
Turn it. You can do the reverse is also true. Turn it around. They've got a YouTube channel and they don't even know it. They got it's just there, but people don't realize that there are so many different uses of all of this content. And we live in such an amazing point in time where you can become your own media channel. I mean, Red Bull. I mean, they've got millions of viewers. I mean, back in the day, if I grew up in St. Louis, let's just say the St. Louis Cardinals person in charge of advertising reaches out to Red Bull. Hey, you want to buy a banner out in our left field home run fence? Sure, it's X dollars a year, and you're going to get exposed to these many millions of people. Okay. Red Bull can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really think about it, a St. Louis Cardinals game, how many of those people are really, really Red Bull consumers, ideally? You got grandmas, grandpas, they're not typically the skater or action sports type, clientele. And obviously there's going to be enough of them in there, people that are in there that would use it. But, they're wasting a bunch of money marketing to a bunch of people that aren't their ideal demographic. So what does Red Bull do? They go out and they create their own sports. They've got their own motocross. They got their skateboard channels. They've got their own motocross channels. They've got their own mountain biking channels. And they attract their ideal audience. And guess what? Now they televise those events, which are all on their YouTube channel. And if you're watching a motocross race, they've got their logo all around the entire course, not just out in one of those spot in left field wall. The racers are wearing Red Bull logos on their helmets. The person doing the interviews got Red Bull. They are absolutely attracting their ideal market. They're maintaining their attention. They're positioning themselves properly. And guess what? They can put out content after content after content to millions of these people again and again and again for free.
Yep.
Like that. So when you start asking me, what would I do? I would start with reading Expert Secrets, because I think it will give anybody who's listening clarity of thought and focus, and it will save them years of hard work and hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars down the road, because they're not going to have to redo the stuff they should have done right the first place, which this book would help them do. Second of all, recognize that between the podcast, I mean, you know how it is. I did make a note on this one. We had I think that the difference between 20 years ago and now is that, the audience back in the day was TV. Now it's video channels. It was
And it's short form video channels. Am I right?
Yep. Radio. Now you got podcasts. You had the news wire. Well, fresh off the news wire. Well, now that's status sites. That's your Twitter. That's your Facebook. That's your LinkedIn, where people are giving you real time. This is what's going on right now. So you start talking about newspapers and magazines. Those are article posting sites and blog sites. So the delivery mechanisms that we as business people have, we can go straight to the consumer. We don't have to have the TV stations, the radio stations, the newspapers, the magazines. I mean, those are nice. I mean, they have their point and they have their place, but you're not limited to that anymore. So it is possible for someone to market like a Goliath on a David-sized budget.
Yeah, you got to know who you're trying to reach, and you become ultra efficient once you have that dialed in. And I made that mistake early on. I wanted to serve everybody. When you try to serve everybody, you end up serving nobody. And another mistake I made actually falls in line with mistake 12 of your book, being sterile, politically correct, and forgettable. I wanted to be the ultimate professional that was sterile and basic and looked like he was bigger than he really was. And I wanted to not rock the boat. And it was in 2017, 2018 that I started to make adjustments to my brand and I started to figure out who I wanted to work with. And as I got a little bit closer to the gold, I realized that in order for me to really find my right clients, I needed to attract my right clients. And I had to do that by becoming very opinionated on where I stand on issues, who I really was, and not being afraid to show it. And that changed the game in 2020 for me. So being sterile, politically correct, and forgettable led to almost the demise of the company in 2017. And I changed it all around in 2019, 2020. It all started to take form. So can you tell us about the importance of really being memorable, about not being politically correct, and about being outspoken and maybe exciting to a point? So tell us about that.
I'm going to let it rip. I got a couple ideas, and I don't know which one to pick, so I'm just going to let it rip and see where this goes. The book that I would recommend in that area is one called Clue Train Manifesto.
Ooh, don't know that one either.
And and Russ Brunson talks about being prolific, picking a side. And you talk about knowing your ideal audience. I mean, all of these ideas are hitting me. I'm probably going to butcher this story, but I'm going to do my best because I'll still make the point. But there was a story, we'll call him Dr. Bob. And Dr. Bob realized that a large part of bad breath was, I guess, bacteria on the tongue. And he created what later become called the toothbrush for the tongue. And he spent all his money trying to market this, and the companies ignored him. They blew him off. Walmart didn't care, and he spent his life savings. He wasn't a marketer, and he got to the point where he was ready to give up, and he got involved with a college marketing class, and said, "Hey, look, I've spent my life savings on this. I believe in this idea. If people just toothbrush their tongue or whatever, then I've created this device that can do it, and it'll solve bad breath." And people just blew it off. Well, long story short, he went through this. He partnered with a college and a marketing class, and they did research. And they said, he goes, "I will trust what you guys tell me. You guys are pros in this area. You're learning. Like I'm open. Teach me what I need to know." Well, long story short, all of these groups got together and they did the research, and the class got together at the end and they said, "Dr. Bob, we got bad news for you. 93% of the population thinks your idea is dumb. They don't like it. And we're sorry you wasted your money, and we wish we could have told you this sooner." But there was one kid in the back of the class that said, "Bob, I don't agree with them." He's like, 93% of the people might think your idea is dumb, but 7% love it.
Yeah.
And last time I checked, 7% of the population is still a gazillion people. He's like, and they don't just like it, they love it. Well, the next thing you know, he creates a YouTube video, word gets out and goes viral. Next thing you know, you got all these big chains calling them, the Walmarts, the Targets, the people overseas are calling this guy. Then they come up with it for the dogs and the pets. I can't remember, Orabrush maybe. I'm not sure what the name of it is, but anyway, the point is, if he would have just tried, oh, I got to please everybody, and he would have been sterile, he would have just continued to get thumped and lost everything. But what he did was he dialed in his message to the 7% of people who loved it and recognized that that was enough of a market. And when you start talking about things like keyword research when it comes to marketing online, what do I care about? Number one, is there traffic? Are there people actually typing in a keyword phrase?
Yep.
Significant numbers to make an effort to create content around it. Two,
And real quick, just to jump on that, which maybe 1, 2, or 3 programs would you recommend? I love Keywords Everywhere. I also love Blitz Metrics, I believe is the company that I work with. That's the name of it. There are many out there. So is there any 1 or 2 that you recommend that could help you? Yeah.
You can't go wrong with the ones that you just said.
Yeah.
You take a look at, I look at competition. I want to know 2 things about the competition. I want to know about the quality of the competition, the strength of it. Are they good, or do they have a good presence that's going to be difficult to displace online? And I also want to know about the quantity of competition. How many other competitors are out there? I also want to know about the searches. Are those searches that I would be building content around relevant to what I offer and to what my expertise is? And I also want to know that there's commercial value associated with that. If someone's looking for free ways to solve this problem, that may be relevant, it's not commercially viable, because people that are looking for that their intent isn't to spend money to get a solution. They're looking for something free. Well, if I'm offering something that costs money, that's not my prospect. But anyway, that's what hit me. Did I cover your, before I get too far off course, did I cover your question about the being
sterile, politically correct, and forgettable?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you touched on it, is that your audience needs to love you. They don't need to like you. I think it's important they need to love you, right? I think that's so crucial, because you need to create these raving fans out there. The raving fans will be your referrals. They'll be your testimonials. They'll be your army. They'll be your sales force. But it's not just externally. It's got to be internally too, right? The people on your team need to love the mission that they are a part of, and they need to understand the promised land that you have outlined for them as the leader of your company. I think that it's your job not to really focus on the people who like you, or maybe, think of you and like, he's okay. You need to focus on the people who love your solutions, your drive, your personality. And when you do that, you end up serving them at a much higher level, and there's buy-in externally and internally. Am I right?
I agree 100%. And I don't care if someone doesn't like me or what I do. I don't care if they're indifferent. The difference between indifferent and hate is they're not going to buy from me.
Damn right.
If someone likes you, okay, they might, but if they are passionate about it, and unless you put your stake in the ground and say, hey, this is what I'm about, and this is what I do, and this is who I do it for, you're wasting your time.
Damn right. See, I even recently, we build funnels and websites, and we create book funnels for people. Well, the thing is that there are many people out there who create funnels and websites and all that, right? So when I'm talking to somebody, they need to know pretty fast that they like doing business with me, right? They need to know that, oh, if there's a problem, this guy will be there. He'll solve it. He has no issue. I like his personality. They need to understand that I'm the right fit for them. And they need to know that I'm sort of selective on who we want to work with. And I think that it's your job as the entrepreneur to showcase, as much as possible that you guys are a great match. And if you hold back, if you try to be sterile, they're not going to believe in you. They want to know, they want to have certainty. There's that great quote out there: confused people never buy. And let's just say unclear people never buy, right? If they're not clear who you are and what you're going to do if a problem arises, or if you're going to be there next week, or if you're not committed to your craft, there's that little bit of a hesitation, right? And there's a great quote from a movie called Point Break: fear causes hesitation, and usually hesitation causes your worst fears to come true. And the goal is, as an entrepreneur, is to remove hesitation, I think.
You know what? You hit on something that I'm gonna pile on because I agree with it. When you put content out, it takes guts to not be sterile. Sterile is safe, but safe is risky. That was one of the main quotes.
Oh, it's so good.
That was one of the main quotes of the Blue Train Manifesto. People play it safe because they think it's risky, but safe is risky because you're going to get ignored. You're going to get overlooked. you're not going to make a connection. And the thing is, like, I want to put out content, but this takes guts. But I want to put out content that attracts my ideal customer and repels the ones who aren't. And it's not enough for me to attract an audience.
Push away the ones that don't fit, right? That's your saying.
Yeah. So I'm going to a real life story. So one of my buddies, he owned one of the top 5 online recruiting companies in the country at one point. And how do I phrase this? He asked me one time, he was actually speaking in front of a group of human resource executives in St. Louis, probably 10 or 15 years ago. And he said, if you put an ad in the paper for an open job, what's the worst thing that can happen? And everybody's like, nobody responds, nobody responds, nobody responds. You don't get any bites. You just wasted your money and you wasted your time putting together the ad. He's like, nope, that's the second worst thing that can happen. And everybody's kind of looking around at each other, dumbfounded, like, well, what's worse than spending money on a help wanted ad and not getting any applicants? He's like, getting flooded by a whole bunch of applicants, none of which are capable of doing the job.
Damn right.
So
Getting the wrong people on board.
You're burdened by having to go through all this paperwork and conduct interviews and waste additional time and money on top of what you did to find out that none of these people are capable of doing the job. I feel the same way about marketing your business. Market in a way where you're going to attract your ideal ones and you're going to repel the wrong ones. And people always talk about making, I'm going to go on a little rant here since you're letting me, but people, everyone always talks about being easy to do business with. And to a degree, I agree. But there's another point where I want to throw in a few hoops. I want to throw in a few obstacles. I want to make people do a little bit of work to get my time. Because if I can go up to you and say, hey, I can improve your business in X, Y, and Z ways, and I can save you all this money exponentially and da-da-da-da, and then you expect me to continue to work to convince you, that's not how I roll. What I'm going to do is I want to, how do I phrase this? I want you, if you're not willing to spend 10 or 15 minutes or 30 minutes or the time it takes to read my book
to
solve these problems that could be worth hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a year in revenue to you, if your time is not worth that to improve your business, then it's certainly not worth mine. I want to do.
So scarcity creates value is what you're saying to a degree.
In my book, and this is for anybody of your audience that does write books or is thinking about writing books, to me, that's almost an initial qualifier.
Ooh.
So I want people to read my book, to know who I am, what I have to offer, and how I can help them so that we can talk specifically about improvements. Because if they're willing to spend, an hour or two reading my book, then they're worth my time. But if they're like, no, just explain it to me, then they're not suffering enough. The pain isn't bad enough for them to be able to take the time and to spend their money with me.
Great point. Now, you make me think of something here, and I think it's crucial for anybody who works with us or is just listening, that a book and a course and maybe a few videos are stepping stones to working with you one-on-one or part of your mastermind, right?
I can't care more about their business than them.
Right. So that's a test. You're putting tests in front of them, right? And you're not making it as easy as possible. You're actually making it so they're educated to a point that whenever you do work with them one-on-one, they're at a level mentally and I guess you could say financially for them to actually adopt what you say and do it for as long as it takes. Am I right?
I'm gonna throw out another story about expert mentality. When my son was he was a little kid, maybe 3 or 4 years old. He ended up coming in one morning and he tapped on my wife's shoulders. Mama, I'm sick. And, and the kid's pretty tough. He never really was if something was up, he wasn't a sickly kid. So she knew something was wrong. Like mother instincts took over, and we ended up taking him to the hospital. And he had I can't even remember what it was, but it required a hospital stay of 3 days and nights. And what I realized was he got great care, and he was in the hospital 3 days and 3 nights. And our bill was like, I don't know, back then it was back in the day when it was crazy, but I don't know, it's like $5,000 or something like that, which the insurance covered, of course, took care of it. But I asked my wife, I said, did he get great care? And she's like, absolutely. I said, did you feel we were informed at every stage of the process what was going on and what the next steps were and what the options were? She goes, absolutely. I said, over the cumulative total of 3 days and nights, how much time do we actually spend with a medical doctor? She's like, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 minutes, 30 tops. Cumulatively over the course of those times, the doctors would come in, they'd check, they'd look at some reports, and they'd make some comments, and they'd go. So you know what? My kid had a perfectly clean room, but I didn't see any doctors changing sheets. I didn't see doctors sweeping floors. You know what? He had 3 good meals a day, but I didn't see doctors preparing food, and I didn't see doctors delivering it. I saw the doctors doing what required their specific skill, knowledge, and ability. And they had other people taking care of the other things that contributed to the great experience. If you've got people in this audience that are the doctors of their industry and they have specific knowledge, skills, and experience, they don't need to be wasting their time doing other nonsense that can be
Bingo.
automation and other things. They need to stick to what they do. And doctors aren't going to spend their time trying to convince people that they need it. I am in the sorting business, not convincing. That's you can talk about another value of the book. I am all about sorting ideal prospects, not convincing them. If I can sort those who care enough about solving the problem that they're willing to invest the time, they'll buy the book, they'll read the book. If they want to actually take action, then they'll reach out to me. And those are the people that are worth my time.
Woo. Good point there. And I used to just have one bullet in the gun. I just had one solution. And as time went on and we grew, I started to have other solutions. And that's the best way to put it is you are sorting to see where they fit in those buckets. They're not all created equal. They are not all at the same point in their journey. They are not at the same point financially, mentally, all of it. And so what you're doing there is if an individual or prospect comes to you, if you have the right business, you sort. You don't convince. Is that what you're saying? That's the best way
Yeah.
to put it.
I'll tell you what, the co-author of my first book, Sales Utopia, was a guy by the name of Alan Minster. And he really explained to me the difference between sales and marketing better than anyone ever has. He said, most people don't understand the difference between sales and marketing. He goes, marketing is like planting a crop in the springtime. You kill the bugs, you fertilize, you water the soil, you give it time to grow. Sales is the harvest. But also often people try to harvest where no crop's been planted, or worse, they don't bother to follow up and someone else comes along and reaps rewards for their efforts. As salespeople, or business owners, we're always ready to sell. Prospects aren't always ready to buy. Timing's everything. So one of the nice things about creating a book and having content and having a social presence on social media, particularly if you're content-driven organization, is that allows you to do what Alan referred to as nurture marketing. Unfortunately, what the experts say that most business transactions don't happen until 10 or 11 contacts, and most people give up after 1 or 2. Hi, Mr. Business Owner, are you willing to do business with me today? Nope. How about you? Nope. How about you? Nope. How about you? Yes, I am. And they spend all their time with the guy who's ready right now. Meanwhile, the first 3 guys have a need. They just weren't ready right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's the nice part about having social channels and podcasts and books and stuff. So you can, and articles and videos continually going out because you can stay in touch with these people for free so that you're in front of them when they're ready to buy. Something goes south. Oh man, I remember reading that book, or I remember seeing that article, or I remember listening to that podcast. That guy was right. I need to reach out to him. We need to make something happen. Let's get on that. But then that's the nice part about having the book and having the videos and having the podcasts is you have the content that can continually stay in touch with these folks until they're ready. But I don't want to spend my time. Alan Minster, he always referred to people. He said, I care about 2 things. If I'm going to spend my time with someone, I care about, on a scale from 0 to 10, that they're highly qualified. What do I mean by qualified? They have a need, they can make a decision, they can pay for it. The other thing he cares about is I want to make sure that they're interested. They want to do it in business now. I want to spend my time, which is my only non-renewable resource, in front of prospects who are both of those things, highly qualified and highly interested. If they're highly qualified but not interested, I can nurture market them. If they're highly interested but they're not qualified, I don't want to waste time with them.
Yep.
And he goes, anybody who doesn't spend their time with their ideal prospects who are both highly qualified and highly interested, they're not salespeople, they're not business owners, they're professional visitors.
I've never heard that. That's good. Professional visitors. Great point. Highly qualified, highly interested. And to dial that in, might take a little bit of time, but once you get there, my God, you become a well-oiled machine. It's great.
does.
Man, you said a few great nuggets there. Hopefully, you guys were taking notes of that, right? Hopefully, you're taking the pen out. The worst pen is better than their best
Yes,
memory. So
it is.
hopefully, you were taking notes there. Uh, I know that I could talk to you for hours about entrepreneurship, business development, but I'm assuming you have many ways to get a hold of you. Maybe you have a social media channel that you're quite active, or the other books that are available. What is the best way to get in touch with you if somebody listens to this podcast and just wants to talk with you directly?
I would just type in Mason Dukacek in Google, and
Easy to find, right?
yes, I'm easy to find. Type in Mason. It's my first name. My last name is Dukacek, Duchatschek. You type in Mason Dukacek in Google, you'll find my sites, workforcealchemy.com. You'll find my YouTube channels. You'll find my Twitter accounts. Just you type in Mason Dukacek in Google, and I won't be hard to find.
Man, that is, yeah. How many Mason Dukaceks are out there? I can't imagine that it's going to
You're looking
be.
at
You're
it.
yeah, right. So there was a Mike Fallat back in the day that was always beating me on Google, and it took me about a year and a half of constant blog posting, but I beat him, and it felt so good. So when you own your name on Google, and you're the first one who pops up, that's the best feeling, I always say. So own your own Google with your name. And guys, his book is Attract, Capture, and Convert. 89 simple ways entrepreneurs make money online using social media and web marketing strategy. I love the jug fishing story. I love the quote, safe equals risky. And I love that their worst pen is better than your best memory. Great quotes, awesome showing. And I really appreciate you being here, Mason. This has been awesome. Can you please come back on again when you put out another book?
Actually, I did just put out a new book. Came out a couple months ago with my son called Offer versus Ask, but it's really geared towards the nonprofit executives and trade associations. But yeah, that one just came out.
Okay, so
My
offer
son, my
versus ask.
son,
I pulled up your name on Amazon, and it looked like there was many books. I didn't see that one. So
it's new. My son helped me write it. It came as a
okay,
result of a class project he had when he was finishing up at Wichita State, and it became that experience became a story worth retelling, and we wrote it because we believed it would help people avoid unnecessary pitfalls, and it was a fun process writing a book, my first book with my son.
wow. So you seem well read, and you seem like you've been around all the motivational speakers. I have to ask you, who's your favorite of all time? In my opinion, Jim Rohn is the
Oh,
goat. Is the goat.
oh, Rowan's a good one. He is a good one. I'll give you that. But Tony Robbins does it for me. And I
Okay,
think
so you
Rowan
know that Jim Rohn
inspired
taught
Robbins.
Tony Robbins, right?
Yeah, I do.
So I have to give Jim Rohn still the credit. But yeah, Tony Robbins, absolute machine. Still to this day, I think that he is the pinnacle that's alive. He's the one that kind of runs the show when it comes to motivation and getting your mind right to really grow your business. I think it all starts in the mindset. So if
It
you
does.
listen to him enough, it's going to rub off on you, and therefore you have what it takes. I was just watching his video today about incantations, right? Incantations before you get up on stage, before you get on a sales call. Start to really put yourself in a state of mind and physiologically your state of being that you're ready for the win. It's awesome.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me today.
Thanks, Mason. I appreciate it. Remember, guys, $1 million book will lead to $1 million life. Right on.